What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Talkin Sports with Jake. Hope we're all doing well. So, more NBA and NHL for teams. Let's jump right in. So, Klay Thompson reached a deal with the Dallas Mavericks. He sends a 3-year, $50 million deal. Dallas sends 2 second-round picks to the Warriors to complete the sign and trade to see if Golden State something. This is a really good move for the Dallas Mavericks. Klay is not the guy he once was. That was, guy having 39 points in a single quarter and one of the best shooters on the planet, but he's still a very good player. He averaged 17, almost 18 points a game last year for the Golden State Warriors. He shot 40% from the field, 38 from 39 from the line. Look, I've seen in the past the guy is kind of washed, and he's not exactly the same, but he's still a goodish player. After being moved to the bench, he actually played a lot better. I saw a stat on ESPN. I think it was yesterday. When he was a starter, he averaged 17.4 points a game. I think he shot like 36% from three or 38% from three. But then when we moved him to the bench, he averaged 19, almost 20 points a game. He shot 46% from the field and 4% from three. So he's not like Mount Ginobili, Miami Ray Allen stage of his career, where he's not a star anymore. He is still a very good shooter to have on your bench. He can still come in and hit threes off the bench. He shot 30% from three last year and hit 40% of the three after getting moved to the bench. I think he'd be a very good sixth man. This is a very good deal for the Dallas Mavericks to get him $17 million a year. And the Orlando Magic re-signed Gary Harris, 2 years, $14 million. Harris last year had almost 7 points a game, 44 from the field, 37 from the line. He's just it's crazy. He's been in the league 11 years. I didn't realize he's been in the league 11 years. It's kind of crazy. Remember, he came up in Denver, and they sent him to Orlando in the Aaron Gordon trade a couple of years ago. He early on in Denver looked like he was going to be a really good player. Never really came to fruition, but he's a solid rotational piece. He averaged almost 7 points a game last year. 37% from threes. He's a pretty good shooter. That's all he can do. The Boston Celtics extended Jason Tatum 5 years, $315 million. That gives him $63 million a year, surpassing his teammate Jaylen Brown as the highest paid NBA player ever. Well, money, but he's a great player. Obviously, he averaged 26 and 8 this past year, shot 46 from the field, 37 from 3, 84 from the line. He's certainly a superstar. He is, between him and Jaylen Brown, I think it's a lot closer than people think as for who's the best player. To be honest, I don't really think it matters, as long as they both complement each other, which clearly they do better than people thought, because as we saw this year, they just won a championship. You had to keep him. NBA money is crazy. Should Tammy the hockey player in the league? Probably not, but we were thinking about Jaylen Brown last year, and he wouldn't have had a great year, and they just won a championship. So Tatum is now locked down. The Warriors make a move. Obviously, they've had a rough offseason. They tried to trade for Paul George. They offered a whole lot. They offered the Kuminga and Moses Moody and Wiggins and the pick for all this for Paul George. The Clippers didn't trade him to the Warriors, and of course, he ends up leaving and going to the Sixers. I think there was somebody else they were looking. They got rid of Chris Paul for nothing. Going back to last year, they trade Jordan Poole for nothing. Now you lose Klay for nothing. You just had D'Anthony Melton on a one-year deal of $12.8 million. It's not going to save them, but averaged 11 points a game last year, shot 38 from the field, 36 from 3, 83 from the line. So he's a solid guard to have on your bench. He's a decent three-point shooter, decent scorer. He's a very good defender. He's a nice piece to have on your bench. Warriors bring him in. Jalen Smith goes to the Bulls, 3 years, $27 million. Last year, he averaged 9, almost 10 points, and 5 boards, shot 59 from the field, 42 from 3, 69% from the line. Another role player. He's still pretty young. Bulls trying to identify their young core. Maybe this could be a guy that can be part of that. He's a decent backup big man. He's a decent scorer, can shoot the three a little bit, and he's a good rebounder. So Bulls add him. The Suns re-signed Royce O'Neal for $44 million. Gave a couple of picks to get him. Trade the line from the Brooklyn Nets. Overall, he gave him 7-4, shot 39, 37 to 68. He's really just have to guard the perimeter. He's a good perimeter defender. He doesn't give you a whole lot offensively. He's an average 3 and D guy to have on your bench. The Lakers just gave Ryan James a guaranteed deal. Only about probably 30 minutes before I started filming this, he got a guaranteed deal, which means he will be on the Lakers team. Look, he doesn't deserve it. He should be in the G League, but he's LeBron's son. LeBron runs the Lakers, so of course that's what happened. The Indiana Pacers signed James Wiseman to a 2-year deal. This was interesting. So Wiseman obviously was a third pick in the draft a few years ago. Where never has not worked out. Because many times that I've tried to defend them. I've tried to defend him, but it's he's still very raw. I said he's a guy who needs to play because he didn't play a lot of college basketball, hasn't really gotten that opportunity. Didn't get in Golden State. He thought he was going to get in Detroit. Hasn't really happened. But I said before, you're needing to go to a team like Charlotte or Washington, like a really, really bad team. He can play 30 minutes a game to see if he can really show what he can do. But no horrible move. He's still really young. Still, I think 23 or 24 years old. It's another big to have on the bench. So he's not no horrible sign. I'm sure. I don't know. We don't know the financial terms yet, but he does not. I'm sure it didn't cost a whole lot. I mean, when it comes to big, obviously Miles Turner was very good. You have Isaiah Jackson there as well. They did lose James Spencer. They probably just wanted someone to replace him as a big on the bench, and they get that with James Wiseman. Cleveland just extended Donovan Mitchell 3 years, $150 million. Player option after the second year. This is interesting. So a lot of people thought he was going to get 4 years, 209. That was the most he could get. But they gave him 3 years for 150 with a player option after the second year. So he'll still also a lot of people thought he might get traded. He was going to the last year of his deal. But so now he gets an extension. So now he's at the point where they may be sitting at the same table next year. And because he'll be going into a year where he's got the player option. If he exercises, obviously he'll have the extra year. But yeah, they have extended him for 3 years, $150 million. He'll stay in Cleveland. I think he's a really good player. I do think he's a bit overrated. I'm not sure if he's gonna be a one on a championship team. I still have my doubts. He hasn't been the guy's supposed to be a star, and he hasn't really been a star in the playoffs to me. It's not been bad by any means, but he's had a few times where he had, like in the Knicks series, not this year, but the year before, he was not very good outside of games 1 and 2. Obviously, this year he got hurt in that Boston series. He had a couple of games where he struggled in Orlando, so he has been a star in the playoffs. He's been very good. He's been a good player, but he's staying in Cleveland for these couple of years. It looks like. On to NHL free agency. Still a whole slew of moves that happened yesterday. So the Islanders made a move, signing Anthony Duclair to a 4-year deal worth $14 million. He had a good year last year. Had 24 goals. He has 42 points. Look extremely mediocre for a while. They were so bad offensively, although they were very good defensively. And also had a great goal in Sorokin. But last year they got a lot better offensively, but they regressed a lot defensively. Sorokin had a down year to the point where he probably wasn't even the best goalie on the team compared to Simon Varlamov. But he's a good player. He's been around. He came up with the Rangers. They traded him to Arizona in the Keith Yandle trade years ago. Looked like he was going to break out and be a star. He's had a few good years, but hasn't really become a star. But he's a little bit a decent player. He's bounced around the league. But he's a decent player that will he's a solid second or third line player, and that will help the Islanders for sure. Still need a lot more than that. Need to get better defensively for sure, but he'll help them. The Oilers signed Jeff Skinner to a 1-year deal with $3 million. Skinner was just bought by Buffalo. He's still a good player, a little older. He had a very good year last year. Had 24 goals, 22 assists, 46 points. He's still a good second line player. And look, Anthony needs a goalie. Skinner is okay, but not an elite goalie. They just bought out Jack Campbell, but they need a goalie. But Skinner is a very good player. He's another piece offensively for the Edmonton Oilers. And they brought back a couple of players. They brought back Adam Henrique, 2 years, $6 million. They got him from Anaheim at the trade deadline last year. You bring him back 2 years and $6 million. Last year, 24 goals, 27 assists, 51 points. He's a solid player in your second, third line. They also re-signed Corey Perry on a 1-year deal, 12 goals, 10 assists, 22 points last year. He's still a solid bottom six guy. Been around forever. I hope this doesn't mean the Oilers leave for their sake. Doesn't mean they're losing the Stanley Cup final. He's lost in the Cup final 4 times in 5 years with 4 different teams. And he's like, all right, maybe if I stay on one team for 2 years in a row, maybe that'll help me. Maybe, who knows? But he came back and they also re-signed Connor Brown for a year. He only had 4 goals, 8 assists, 12 points last year. He's a depth forward. So it brings back those guys, and they also bring in Jeff Skinner. Both made a couple of moves. They signed Brett Pesky, former Hurricanes defenseman, to a 6-year deal with $33 million. That's a really good move for the Devils. They need some help on the back end. Obviously, they got their goaltender by trading for Jacob Markstrom. Now you bring in a good defenseman in Brett Pesky. 3 goals, 10 assists, 13 points last year. He's a really good defenseman now, defensively. He's very good, and both bring him in. And then you also bring in Brendan Dillon, 3 years, $12 million. He's another solid defenseman. 8 goals, 12 assists, 20 points. So, also had a very good free agency overall. I thought they had a good offseason last year. You make the trade. You trade Igor Sharangovich in the first-round pick to get Towers Toffoli. And then they locked up the guy they got betrayed them last year. I can't remember. He was a really good player. Obviously didn't work out. Just the goaltending was just so bad, a lot worse than we thought. Vitek Vanecek was horrible. Schmidt did not take the step we thought he would, and it was just no disaster. To the point where they were starting Nico Dolos most of the year. And then they made the trade. So you trade Vanecek for Kaapo Kähkönen, and it just didn't work. And now you send out Schmidt, but Markstrom's a major upgrade, and they still need some help on the back end, but they get it. They bring in Pesky and Brendan Dillon. Raiders sign Sam Carrick. 3-year deal with $3 million, $1 million a year. A decent signing. Still didn't do a lot more. They had 10 goals. He had 10 goals, 16 points. He's a solid bottom 6 guy. So Rangers adds their bottom 6 by you give up a second and a 5th rounder. You give up a conditional 2nd and 27, a conditional 5th next year. For obviously, if still a decent player. Pittsburgh retained 25% of the salary, so they'll pay him for $3.75 million. And he'll have the open market. And now you give a 3-year deal from now on to Sam Carrick, who will probably be on their bottom 6 somewhere. Seattle signed Chandler Stevenson to a 7-year deal of $6.3 million on an annual average basis. He's a really good player. He's been on Vegas for a while. Had 16 goals, 35 assists, 51 points. That's a good move for Vegas. Not for Vegas. For Seattle. I said before, obviously, their first year was a typical year for their expansion team. I thought they overachieved in their second year, making the playoffs and even winning a playoff series against Colorado. Last year, I thought they underachieved. I thought they'd be very good. They ended up missing the playoffs. So this is the year where, very interesting to see what they do. They definitely need a couple more pieces, I thought, offensively and even on the back end as well. Their team's very young. Like Vegas needing expansion, they took a few more veterans, and they committed to winning now. To Seattle, it took a lot more younger players and kind of played a little bit more of a long game as they entered the league. But so that's why obviously Vegas in their first year was in the Cup final. Also, they won it all. Not this year, but the year before. They've been in the playoffs every year but one in their 7 years as a team. Seattle, obviously, through their first 3 years, has won, hasn't made the playoffs 2 out of 3 years. Playing a little more of the long game, which is probably the better way to do it as an expansion, though Vegas has gotten lucky. I mean, they did a phenomenal job. And also, the rules were probably, a lot of people think they were kind of handed the team by the commissioner. They tightened up the rules a little bit. for Seattle. Like you think they let you protect like an extra couple players. That's I saw Vegas was able to get a title contender basically right out of the gate. They didn't want that to happen again. But it's a really good move for the Seattle Kraken. Sharks signed Talkin 4 years, $24 million. Was a really good player. He's had over 30 goals in back-to-back years, 33 goals this past year. The Sharks are god-awful. They are as bad as it gets. Obviously you trade Erik Karlsson last year, they get a lot back. They really need a goalie. What they really need. They'll need a whole lot. You still have Logan Couture is a really good player. Other than that, there isn't a whole lot to like. But you take celebrating with the first overall pick. He's obviously a phenomenal prospect. And you bring in Tyler Toffoli as well. 30 goal scorer. You also signed Alex Wemberg, 2 years, $10 million. He's a decent third line center. I thought that was a decent move. He gets $5 million per. 10 goals, 20 30 points. Wasn't great with the Rangel. Only a goal and 5 points in 19 games with them. He also was, on their third, fourth line. He's a decent bottom six guy that San Jose brings in. Sean Monahan goes to Columbus, 5 years, $27.5 million. So Monahan, back in 2019, he had a huge year for the Calgary Flames. Then he had a couple of down years. But last year, he had a bounce back year. Finally, had a really good year. And ended up getting traded from Montreal to Winnipeg, where he finished off. And he overall had a really good season last year. Trying to find how he did last year. But overall, he's a very good player. That's a good ad for Columbus, who sucks. They are not very good. Obviously, they promoted a bunch of players recently. Obviously, a couple of years ago, you signed Johnny Gaudreau, which was a shock to a lot of people. I found him 26 goals, 36, 59 points. He's a really good player. Columbus adds Montreal Canadiens extend Juraj Slafkovsky. 2 years ago, he was number one pick in the draft. Injury player year as a rookie, but very good year in his second year in the league. 20 goals, 30 assists, and 50 points. He looks like he's going to be a really good player for a long time. And Canadians lock him down. The Golden Knights bring in a goalie. So Ilya Samsonov, so one year deal with $1.8 million. Couple years ago in Washington, he had a good year. It looked like he was going to emerge as a really good goalie. And a couple of bad years. And 2 years ago, he was really good again, but he struggled this year. So he's been very inconsistent from year to year. 40 games this year for the Toronto Maple Leafs, 23-7-8, 3-1-3 goals against the average for 890 save percentage. Those are obviously some ugly numbers. So year to year, he's been some years he's been very good, some years he's been bad. I think if he has a good team in front of him, he's a solid backup. But that's about it. But Vegas needs another goal. You have Aiden Hill there, but you traded by Logan Thompson to Washington, so he'll probably back up Aiden Hill in the season. Vegas is much better defensive than Toronto. Toronto was not good defensively this year. Vegas is a very good defensive team. You do have Alec Martinez, but you should still have a very solid line there. I think Sands will have a better year in Vegas than he did this year in Toronto. Carolina, who's lost a few pieces. Obviously, you lose Jake Gunsel. You lose Brett Pesky as well. You do add a couple of guys. You add Sean Walker, veteran defenseman. He gets a 5-year deal with $3.6 million a year. He started in Philly and was eventually traded to Colorado. 10 goals, 19 assists, 29 points. He's a good puck-moving defenseman. Also signed Shane Gostisbehere, 3-year deal worth $9.6 million. He's had an interesting career. A few years back, he had a huge year for the Philadelphia Flyers. He was going to be a stud. Then fell off the face of the earth for a few years. Then they traded him away. Forgot where he went. And over the last few years, he's completely found himself again. 10 goals, 31 assists, 41 points. He's not a great defender on the back end, but he's a really good moving defenseman for sure. Loves to have a mixture of guys who are really good, types of guys like Brett Pesky, and then guys who are just very, very good puck movers like you had Brett Burns, Brady Shea, Yakov Slavin, though Yakov Slavin doesn't on both ends. Now you add Shane Gostisbehere. And you also re-signed Jordan Martin, 3 years, $9 million. He's a good player. Been there the last couple of years after his strongest career in Arizona. 14 goals, 18 assists, 32 points. I'm sure he'll be right back on their third line again this season. The Stars made a few moves. They signed Ila Labushkin, 3 years, $3.25 million. He had 8 assists last year. He's a solid defenseman to have on your third pair. They add him. They lost Chris Tanev, who's a really good defenseman. Got him at the trade deadline from Calgary. So they need somebody to replace him. Also signed Matt Dumba, 2-year deal with $3.75 million. Was a veteran, 4 goals, 8 assists, 12 points last year. It's another veteran guy. And they also re-signed Matt Duchene for a year, $3 million. Duchene been around for a while, was in Colorado for a while, was also in Nashville. Still a very good player. 25 goals, 4 assists, 65 points. Also, they're run very, very well. The reason they've been, to the conference finals very often the last bunch of years. They were in the Cup final a few years ago, and Duchene comes back. The Blackhawks remain busy. They signed Laurent Brossoit, 2 years, $6.6 million. He's been a backup goalie and was in Winnipeg for a while. Sure, in 23 games, was 15-5-2 for goals against average of 2 and 9.27 save percent. He's one of the best backup goalies in the league. Obviously Vegas had not Vegas. Winnipeg had Connor Hellebuyck last year, who was a best in the finals. He's one of the best goalies in the league. Although he needs to play a whole lot, but when he did, he was really, really good. I'm sure he'll be a very good backup in Chicago. They made a trade to get they made a move for somebody. I can't remember. I'm almost positive they did. I was thinking for a second Logan Thompson, but that was the Washington Capitals. They bring in Craig Smith on a 1-year deal worth $1 million. He had 11 goals last year. Much older. He was in Nashville for a while, then spent a couple years in Boston. He was a really good second-line center for a while. A little older now, but he can still be a decent third, fourth-line player. And then they also had Pat Maroon for a year, $1.3 million. Maroon's been everywhere. Boston, St. Louis, Tampa. He has a ton of playoff experience. I think he might have won a cup in St. Louis. I believe he might have gotten 1, if not 2, in Tampa. He was on Boston this past year, so he's not the best hockey player in the world. At one point, he was a solid third, fourth line guy. He's there for toughness, but he's Ryan Reeves. If Reeves was a little bit, he's like Ryan Reeves kind of guy. I think Maroon's a better hockey player. Reeves is probably brings a little more toughness and the guy who could fight. He's a little bit of a better enforcer than Maroon, but Maroon's overall better hockey player. Last year, 4 goals total to 16 points, been around forever. He'll be on their fourth line. And then need some toughness. He's a good vet to have. And you also signed TJ Brody, 2 years, $3.75 million a year. Brody was in Calgary for a while, and then he was in Toronto for a bit. He's a very good defenseman. Blackhawks add him as well. The Kings made a couple of moves. They signed Warren Foegele, 3 years, $10.5 million. He was in Edmonton this past year. Before that, he was in Carolina. This was a nice signing. Los Angeles Kings had 20 goals, 21 assists, 41 points last year. So I'm sure he'll be their second or third line center. For sure. Look, the Kings need some better goaltending. They got a really good top 6. But Foegele will definitely help them. Also sign Joel Edmondson to a 4-year deal with $3.85 million. That was a bit of a surprise. I think it's a little bit of an overpay. Yeah, he had a goal, 5 assists, 6 points in 54 games last year. A lot for a depth defenseman, but they do add him. They do need defense. Moving on, Ottawa signed David Perron, 2 years, $8 million. Perron's been around for a while. He was in Vegas at one point. He was in St. Louis. He's a very good player. 17 goals, 30 assists, 47 points last year. He heads to Ottawa. Look, Ottawa needs to get better on the back end and net. They are very good offensively. Perron's a good player. And they also had Michael Amadio, 3-year deal worth $2.6 million a year. They're a decent player. 14 goals last year. Probably be in their bottom 6, but they gotta get better defensively. Washington stayed busy, but they made some moves. You got Sherman from Ottawa. Then you trade for Logan Thompson. Yeah, bring in Matt Roy, 6-year deal worth $5.75 million a year. He had 5 goals, 20 assists, 25 points last year. He's a very good young defenseman, and that they give a long-term deal. They also signed Ben Duhaney, 2-year deal worth $1.85 million. 5 goals, 13 points last year. These defensemen will probably be on their third pair. They extend Connor McMichael, 2 years, $4.2 million. He had 18 goals last year for the Washington Capitals. So Capitals got a very, very young team. Obviously, Ovechkin's still kicking it, and 38, however old he is. But they've made some nice moves. And they were the 8th seed this past year. They got swept by the Rangers in the first round. it's looking like they'll at least be in the playoffs again. The Minnesota Wild signed Jakob Trenin, 4 years, $14 million, 12 goals last year. It's not going to save that mediocre franchise, but not a bad guy to have on the third line. The Calgary Flame extend Igor Sharangovich on a 5-year with $5.75 million a year. He was really up with the Blossom in Calgary last year. He had 31 goals. Good move. The Flames who are obviously in a retooling phase. And they also signed Anthony Mantha, a 1-year deal with $3.5 million. He had 23 goals last year. He's a little older, but he's still a very good player. The Florida Panthers re-signed Dmitry Kulikov, 4 years, $4.4 million. He's only the third defensive player pretty much all year, throughout the entire playoffs. He had a goal line, just 20 points. He could probably be on. He's probably going to be a top 4 defenseman in the NHL, but Florida's just so good defensively. He's on there. Prepared, they did just lose Brendan Montour, so maybe they'll get him bumped up. The Utah Hawk Club re-signed Sean Durzi, 4 years, $24 million. Durzi is a very good young defenseman. 9 goals, 32 assists, 41 points last year. Utah brings him back on a long-term deal. The Toronto Maple Leafs re-signed Timothy Lahergren, year $6 million. I mean, defenseman they can get. Last year he had 3 goals, 20 assists, and 23 points. So he's a pretty good player. And to finish off, the Tampa Bay Lightning extend Victor Hedman, 4 years, $32 million. 13 goals, 63 assists, 76 points. He's still one of the best defensemen in the league, even at 34 years old. And lock him down, which will probably be the rest of his career. All right, that's the guide for you guys today. Until next time, so long. Have a great day.